All eyes are on Ethereum right now. Today we'll break down a little bit more around the strategy of how to play this out. My name is Paul Barrett. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's take a look at a couple of things around this. Of course, before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Coinbase. This is where you guys can get going on your crypto journey, deposit some US dollars, and buy some Ethereum. And it's very easy to do. And when you make that trade, you're going to get up to $200 in crypto just for using our link down below. So that's the first thing you need to do if you're brand new to crypto. Now's your chance to get started in all of this. Now, there's a lot happening around crypto, as many of you know. If you are brand new to the channel, by the way, make sure and hit like and subscribe right now. But the Genius Act is really on the Capitol Hill steps of being passed. And this is we are hoping that the Senate is going to pass it this week. If that occurs, that will, of course, be a very good sign for crypto and digital assets as a whole. And I think as we start to see a lot more coming out of this, there's going to get to be some very interesting points. Now, this is a little bit of an analysis that some of the things to watch for, and that is right here, upcoming. You got the House Financial Services Committee now holding a hearing on American innovation. That's going to be happening. Future of digital assets, that's June 4th. On the 5th, you're going to have the same committee holding a hearing on the framework for the future, also around data privacy in the financial system. And then on the 10th, you're going to have the digital assets related legislations on markup. So basically getting a chance to adjust any kind of details. So very early this month, we've got a lot of activity coming into what's going on in blockchain. Further into this potential around the Genius Act is this one. And this is one of the things to watch, is that the Credit Card Act from Senator Roger Marshall is possibly going to be in play. And it's a controversial measure that is very opposed by both banks and card networks. And what it basically means is it's going to reduce costs for merchants. That's a huge deal. If you guys don't know what a merchant does, every time you do a credit card swipe, a merchant is paying a certain percent to their processor. Could be MasterCard, American Express, whoever that might be. But Tom Tillis, he is of North Carolina, has already said, I'm out if you support this. So what that means is we have some heated situations coming on into the point of where this could cause a little bit of problem. Now, if you look at why this is such a big deal, credit card competition, there's a little bit of myths and facts. I want to showcase a couple of points here. Look at this right here. Will merchants share savings with consumers? Yes. Right now, if you look at the credit card transactions that took effect this was back in 2011, this was a big study that was done, said that 70% of the, at that time, estimated $8 billion a year in savings was passed on to consumers. And that is the opportunity for what we could see here. Because remember, this is in some cases 2 and as high as 3.5% of every sale, whether it's online, in person, you name it, a credit card company is getting their piece. This could be a massive role. Now, stablecoin is very tied to this because the alternative of payment rather than a credit card could be stablecoins. This would cause a massive shift in the financial structure of all of this going forward. Why would this affect the market? Because of the M2 money supply. Just look at the M2 money supply. This is the kind of money that we're setting right now, around 21 trillion globally. Huge liquidity into the market. And of course, when liquidity goes into stablecoins, typically digital assets are to follow. One thing I want to hit on right here, if you look at stablecoins and the market share, right now, ETH, of course, growing and continuing. But the big ones that I continue to talk about here is what we're starting to see in some of these other markets that are starting to make a move. And that's everything from Solana, Arbitrum, et cetera, Base even, Avalanche. All of those starting to make a move. And for good reason, because the stablecoin market right now is starting to set up for a massive influx of new capital coming into the space. One point I want to show you also, and the reason that capital is coming in, is just the potential of stablecoin yield. And when you start to combine stablecoins, there's some DeFi opportunities out there that are creating ridiculous amounts of return. And these are stablecoins, guys, stablecoins. So this is something that I think a lot of people will start to figure out, and it could be a big deal moving forward, because that's going to open up an opportunity. Now, one thing that is happening right now is another hearing, and this hearing is entitled American Innovation, the Future of Digital Assets, and this is a blueprint to a functional framework. And one thing I want to focus on right here is who's there. This is the founder of Etherealize. And remember that Etherealize is the company that essentially, project I should say, that is essentially designed to help promote Ethereum to traditional assets and also institutional capital. Also in this is the DeFi network for Ethereum, and that is Uniswap Labs. All this will be taking place here in the next little bit on June 4th. So be on the lookout for that as well. We could see some things coming out of that. Stablecoin issuer Circle, of course, taps JP Morgan Chase Citi ahead of its planned IPO filing. This is happening already. You can actually get this out there available. If you look at this tweet right here, the latest IPO access is available for you to invest in. I would pause on this right now on CRCL, which is the initial filing. It is available over on Robinhood, but I'm more on the potential impact of a lot of the assets that it will start to cause movement in, and that's what we want to keep an eye on. Other things I want you to think about here is this statement right here. Ethereum struggling to convince, guess who? Yeah, JP Morgan, to actually dive in. This is an analyst that has been talking about ETH not having enough, institutional interest, even with Petra having a launch. And that's this guy right here. His name is Nicholas. Don't want to mess with that name, but this is one of the analysts that leads the team around these mixed assessments. You take that into consideration and saying that there's no activity. Remember that Petra occurred right here on this little green dot right there, guys. Look at the growth already, and it is very early in the market. So he's absolutely already wrong, whether you want to call it a lie or not, just bad information and research coming out of JP Morgan. And you kind of wonder why. And if you look at this, JP Morgan right now has already done this before. Remember their dubious Bitcoin ETF idea that, no, this will never work? Well, remember, that was January 15th of 2024. Where's the Bitcoin ETF today? I asked the JP Morgan analyst team. Well, we know. Let me jump to this tweet right here. This kind of says it all. And that is, don't worry about what they're saying, because this is kind of nothing to see over here. Listen and watch what they do, because JP Morgan is holding a large stake in Ethereum and also in the Ethereum Foundation. So all of that playing into this, understand this is kind of setting up for what could be a huge run on ETH. I want to go to this next clip that's going to get into it, because this is what Jamie Dimon said today. Take a look.
What is the impact of the stablecoin legislation on the banks, on JPM?
First of all, we have a JP Morgan coin. That stuff is real. We're going to be at the forefront of that. And so it's used internally. We're going to externalize it at one point. My view is we should be in that. The Fed may do it itself, to move money internationally. That's all reasonable. It could be a very effective way to move money through the correspondent banking system, where everyone in that system can see where the money is, what it's for, where it is, all at the same time. So there are going to be some very good uses for blockchain.
You spend, what, $20 billion on technology? You're spending more on technology than NASA.
Really?
Is that not right?
I don't know.
Well, 20 billion, Jamie, would be more than NASA. And what he says is open network. And what he means by that, if you look at this tweet right here, this is Onyx Digital Assets. And as we all know, we've talked about this quite a bit. Onyx, of course, riding within Layer 0, Axelar, the transition into the Avalanche ecosystem. This means a lot for the potential of where many of these projects are going, all because of stablecoins. And of course, the Genius Act is going to be the beginning of it. And just look here, you can kind of see, here's a good example of JPConnexus. This is when it was kind of rebranded, but these are all the companies and partners. Avalabs right there, Axelar, Layer 0. That is our point. They are invested heavily in the infrastructure around Ethereum going forward. One other thing I want to hit on right here, and that is that the Ethereum Fusaka hard fork is set for Q3 and 4. And remember, this is all still in just what's happening right now, because when Petra occurred, the amount of movement that we saw in ETH was pretty significant. It was the last real move in the market. Imagine where this is going to go when Fusaka hits. Now, I want to go to a clip real quick, because this will get into how much will Fusaka increase business on Ethereum's L1. Take a look.
So Fusaka, 48, 2.4, that's 20 times more capacity, about a year from now, or less than a year from now. How much fee revenue can the Ethereum L1 earn before roll-up fees go above 1 cent? Well, it turns out that we can have median user fees of about 1 cent while earning 1% of total Ether supply per year in blob fees. These are big fucking numbers, man. And then, it's going to double from there. The fact is that Ethereum is going to be selling so much blobs and rollups are going to grow so fast. Look at World and Basis numbers, man. These are titans. These are growing into global businesses. 1 to 2 to 3% of Ether supply paid per year in blob fees. That's Ether supply. The important thing is our blob's a great business. Fuck yeah, they're a great business.
If you think about what Jamie Dimon is doing, he is prepping for a complete shift in the financial system, of which most of this will ride within the Ethereum L1. As we're starting to see technology advances on ETH, this only moves us into a very accelerated event. Look at this right here, because this gets into how the movement over the last upgrade we saw taking about 7 months to saturate. That was the growth and the ability of what ETH was making in terms of upgrades. Now we're talking about what will happen in this next upgrade, which is where we are today, essentially right now with Pectra. Before we get into Fusaka, look at the amount of time that it will take for all of this to start to saturate, causing, again, this kind of movement. So the point is this is only up from here, I think, for Ethereum and what we'll see in the market. Just to look at balances on exchange, last time we saw this kind of movement, again, was this big pump right up into almost 3K with Ethereum. And again, Ethereum starting to pull off the exchanges. So everybody understands what's about to happen. At least the smart money understands what is going on here. One other thing to take a look at here of just people and the popularity of what you're investing in. This is just which currencies are people planning to buy this year. Of course, Bitcoin, kind of a no-brainer, but right behind it, Ethereum at 43%. One other thing I want you to take a look at is Tether Gold. This is something that is starting to shift also, because this is laying the groundwork of what we're going to see around the future. And remember, when you think Tether Gold, you're going to have to look at a blockchain that's going to be able to handle the tokenized asset. That is why I think we're getting ready to step into the next generation, especially around gold. Now, this is something that Peter Schiff was talking about on Bitcoin versus gold tokenized. Take a look.
If you look at the peak from 2021, Bitcoin is 10% lower priced in gold than it was then. Despite all the ETFs and all the Bitcoin's treasury companies, you look at MicroStrategy. His average cost of Bitcoin is $70,000. Whereas he could have bought gold instead of Bitcoin, his unrealized gains would be relatively the same, but he could get out without moving the market. He's stuck. In fact, he has to buy every week to keep the market propped up.
You have a medium of exchange. I mean, that's the value, right? It's a decentralized way for us to pay each other. And it needs to do the proof of work in order for that to
nobody uses Bitcoin really as a mean of exchange because it's no good.
It's slow and it started in America and Europe, but in some small.
But even there, it's too expensive to use. And what people can do in these poor countries, if I tokenize gold and put it on the blockchain, people in poor countries can buy it and use it. They can actually make micro purchases that are prohibitively expensive to make with Bitcoin.
Yeah, fair enough.
Tokenized gold will happen, and we are going to see that become a thing, because that's the only way that gold will be able to truly become a digital asset. If you look at the market of where Bitcoin is today, remember, this is still, even though it is the biggest digital asset, the reality is that we have not seen the market truly uptake on it. So it's possible that Saylor could be trying to prop up the market, but in reality, he might just be there trying to sustain the market until the major asset classes come in, meaning major institutional capital, private family offices, along with private capital, as well as high net worth individuals, all of which have been held out of the market primarily because of regulation. So I think it wins on both sides, both an agreement with Peter Schiff that tokenized gold is going to occur, but also that really it's very early in the Bitcoin life cycle. So I think that's what he's missing right there. One other thing I want to take a look at here, and this of course is Joseph Lubin. He's talking about strategic bet. That's a kind of interesting statement on ETH. And what he really is talking about is what we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, and that is maybe the micro strategy of ETH actually coming into play. And if you guys haven't seen that, I want to play a clip for you. Take a look.
George Tillis, senior markets correspondent for the Schwab Network. And George, we're talking Sharplink Gaming, SBET. That is a stock ticker.
Because maybe the acronym SBET has something to do with it. There's also an Ethereum, tangent here as well. Sharplink Gaming is essentially to help manage sports books and technology for small in regional and state local casinos. Losses per share were out 3.3 million. So this company is far from profitable. Joseph Lubin, who is now going to be a board of director on Sharplink, and he is probably part of this in major capacity, was a co-founder of Ethereum. But that's what the market has latched onto today, and that's why we saw a huge run up to the upside.
And you can see the excitement here using those free cash assets not to be stored in U.S. treasuries or in U.S. dollars, but in Ethereum. Obviously also a heavily shorted name too that saw tremendous unraveling on that front too.
And look at the shorts. These are the shorts weighed in right there. This is insignificant. This has been happening over just the last few days. So that in itself may be setting up an opportunity to maybe go back in on this. When you take a look at that, I want to go over and just show you a little bit. This, of course, was Sharplink Gaming's intends to purchase the $1 billion worth of ETH for its treasury. That's another big push in the right direction. And if they do become a continuation of adding more treasury in ETH, this could become the strategy for Ethereum. Let's take a look at the chart real quick. This is the 4 hour, just to give you guys a little bit of a run on this. Take a look at where this thing came from back here on the 27th of May to its high right there before it did the reverse. That was 1,000%. Of course, a lot of guys got shorted and a lot of guys got wrecked on that because thinking it was not going to go for Sharplink Gaming. Right now, the adjustment down, and we're seeing a little bit of a candle develop right now around 50 bucks. So this may be another entry point. Take a look at it, see what you guys think could be the new ETH play or the new MicroStrategy play for Ethereum. Let's go to another clip real quick because this is Mike Novogratz talking about why ETH is so important. Take a look.
This is my question to you, Mike, is when are you going to tokenize Galaxy assets on Ethereum?
As soon as we can. We are working with the SEC right now, to be fair, potentially tokenizing Galaxy stock in the near future. I think that's going to be the excitement of the second half of the year.
All right, so I agree with Mike on that, and that is you can't be bullish enough. He is looking at tokenized assets probably being the big story toward the second half of the year, and I totally agree with that. If you're not into really believing what Ethereum could do, this is why. Because if you can kind of compare Ethereum to where it is right now, where Bitcoin is right now, where gold is right now, where almost any other asset is right now, are you anywhere near a 2 to 3 or possibly a 4x? Those are the kind of numbers that we could be seeing with Ethereum in a very short time. So be on the lookout, guys. A lot going on right in the market right now. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in. It's the best place to get additional content from us. If you're not in our Telegram group, you can actually chat with me personally over in the Telegram group. We leave a link down below. Follow me out there on X @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.